Greetings, my name is Carl. I am part of the Ogre Gaming Club, and this is the next part of my Star Trek Online series in the podcast. Today, I want to cover a Foundry mission. Foundry is a user-generated, a system for creating user-generated missions. And there is one mission that I recently played that is very good. Now, first up, here is the Foundry mission spotlight from the STO people themselves at Cryptic Studios.
It's just audio. Is it good with just audio? Because
Yeah.
we can't see the video.
Star Trek
Yeah,
Online,
it's good.
Foundry Mission Spotlight.
Hunt for the Dark Dude. Starfleet has detected abnormal movements within the Klingon fleet. You are sent to the USS Exeter to meet with a Federation specialist on Klingon military strategy, and find yourself caught in a game of hide and seek, chasing down an unexpected threat to the Federation, or perhaps a new ally.
Okay, now for my personal take on the mission. This particular mission, well, the Hunt for the Dark Dude is its official title, but its unofficial title could be The Hunt for Red October Star Trek Edition. There are so many shout-outs to that epic movie that I lost count a long time ago, and I really enjoyed it. I mean, that is a fun. That was a fun movie, and it's fun story. And Hunt for the Dark Dude is a fun Star Trek take on it. Instead of of course, there are some differences. The original Red October, its claim to fame was a caterpillar drive, meaning that it was so quiet that it could only be picked up as like a seismic anomaly or something like that, or something natural, anything but a submarine. The Dark Dude, instead, is equipped with according to the story, is equipped with an interphasic cloaking device, which allows it to pass through solid matter. If you've seen the Star Trek Next Generation episode Pegasus, you will know precisely what I am talking about, because they dealt with a ship which had an interphasic cloak. It's a very good mission with very good storyline, very good dialogue. The one thing I could complain about is the last battle. It's epic, yes, but the enemies that you fight are only. It's a Federation mission, of course, so you're facing Klingon ships, but the only enemies you have to fight in that last mission are birds of prey, and the Klingon Empire would not send just birds of prey after a target. They would send their entire fleet. They would send pretty much every type of ship they had. So, yeah, I think the guy who wrote it, who made the mission, should include some more diversity on the ships you face in the final battle. But other than that, but that's about the only problem I had with that mission. Otherwise, it is still very good. And that's pretty much all I had to say about that. Any questions from you guys? In the club?
Not exactly.
Any questions or comments?
Actually, I do have a question. I am an SCO player myself, and I have not heard of this mission, but
It's in the community
I know. I
authors.
play a lot of Foundry missions myself. It's just that I have not played in like the last month, so.
I think this was a fairly old.
Does it include anything where you are blind in terms of sensors?
Yeah.
Like other than the interphasic cloak?
Oh.
Like passing through a nebula or anything like that?
Yeah, when you get to the Doc Douche, it's basically hiding in a nebula.
Okay.
Like a boss. Sorry.
Yeah. But, okay. I guess that's about it
That
then.
was the only question I had.
Okay. And that's about it for me. This is Carl, reminding everyone, with courage, even 1% can become 100.
Oh.
I'm okay.
Welcome to the Ogre Podcast. I'm Grant Curtis. Joining me is Drew, Carl, Ian, Derek, and David.
Because we're awesome.
We're going to talk about fighting games and why they take no skill. And if you play them, you're a loser. No, not really. But only the first two.
No survival skills needed.
In defense of fighting games, I have not played fighting games in the past. I don't know. I think my last fighting game that I played was somewhat of a passion was Mortal Kombat on the Sega Genesis. So I can't say anything very recent, with the exception of what I've seen of Mortal Kombat, the Lowly Fighter game, and Naruto. I will agree, Naruto takes absolutely no skill. It's a matter of spamming one button.
For some of the more recent games that he haven't played, like Tekken and the Marvel or the Capcom games that recently come out, it's all about memorization and not about how much skill you have in the execution of the things.
Because it's all about spamming cheesy combos, judging from what I've seen of Mortal Kombat.
And that's a reason why competitive players are the scum of the universe in terms of gaming.
Because literally it's a matter of who can cheese the other one out first.
You are included. If you're a competitive player, if you go to like contests and stuff where money is involved and you want to do good, that's what you have to do. You have to cheese. But we'll get to that. First of all, in a fighting game, you cannot just act on your instincts because that's just called button mashing. And you won't get anywhere with that because the games are designed around not being able to button mash and succeed. You have to memorize this giant list of combos for each character, and you also have to memorize your opponent's combos. So you have to memorize the entire roster of the game and all their moves, and you have to know how long they each take so you can actually do something in the game.
Versus like in old fighting games, when somebody was going to crank out a big combo, you could recognize it just by like the wind-ups and stuff. I mean, I remember that in like old Mortal Kombat. You could see somebody would go down for an uppercut and you could back up for it. Like now, it's just kind of like, what is this?
Yeah, I've played my share of fighting games in the past. Arcane of Heart is one of my more recent ones. That's what Grant calls Lolly Fighter. Because it's awesome.
Go on, what?
Sorry. But one that I played a while back, I don't have it anymore, is called Battle Assault. Basically, it is what you get if you make a Gundam fighting game. Where you
So we're talking like a mech warrior fist punching game. Am I understanding this correctly?
something like that, yeah.
Because that sounds awesomely cool, but like really pathetic at the same time.
Yeah.
On a side note, sorry.
Is that even possible?
It's got, I mean, you have both. Battle Assault 2 was the first one of those I played. It was decent. Battle Assault 3, which was for the PlayStation 2, was more than decent, but it wasn't really a truly epic game. Because it was a fighting game. Even though it had stuff from the latest show at the time, Gundam Seed, in fact, that was its primary focus. It wasn't really what I'd expect from an epic Gundam game.
What about its taking skill or not? What do you...
Well, to be honest, it didn't take too much. I don't think it took too much skill. About the only skill that you needed was Battle Assault 3 gave you the ability to upgrade your machine's OS on the fly. That was sort of like a tap the button, you activated that feature and you had to type in a set of buttons in a specific order.
So it was about a combo based, which Gregory Brain just addressed.
Well, actually, it's not. It's not a combo. It wasn't an attack. It's more like a pattern finding. It's more like you have to a set of buttons show up on the screen and you have to press them.
It's like a quick time event or something?
Yeah. Only it was in real time, and if your opponent attacked you while you were doing it, they would interrupt it.
I think I played one of those games you were talking about, one of the Battle Assault, like 2 or 3 or 1 even.
You talking about Mech Assault?
No,
it was a Gundam thing.
Yeah, Gundam Battle Assault.
I remember just being one of the guys who had a mace, and one of his special moves, he like swings the mace, and it was cool. Like the sprite, if the enemy took enough damage, his sprite would change, and it would like reveal damaged circuitry and stuff. But I never played that with another human being, so I wouldn't know how much skill it took or didn't take.
Yeah,
but
I didn't take too much skill.
Well, Grant, what's your opinion on older fighting games? Like, let's go back to like the fighting games of like, at least me and you. I don't know about these guys. How soon they started playing video games? I was playing video games when I was like 5, and I remember Mortal Kombat. What's your opinion on those?
I never played those. The first fighting game I played was Tekken 4, I think, and that's pretty much recent compared to Mortal Kombat and Sega Genesis.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't have any opinion upon those fighting games, but I have played them. Once here at this club, someone brought an NES, and we played some of the early Mortal Kombat games with the down, right, punch, kick combos. Those were the extent of the combos that they had.
Oh, another fighting game that actually a fighting game series that I know of and actually kind of enjoy is Soul Calibur.
Soul Calibur, I know, was all about the combos, and there's like only one case in point that only one character's combo that I have to say. Ivy's, I think it was like the Swan Song or whatever, which was just like, and you basically just fuck the other person's world. I couldn't even do the combo. I think I got Grant to do the combo, I could get the achievement.
Yeah, you had to. It was a long combination of button presses, and it was like a grab.
I don't do combos too much. But I still managed to win in a lot of the single player modes.
Single player isn't even relevant because this is like competitive stuff. Yeah. We're talking about why competitive gamers are scum. Single player is easy. You just spam against the computer because.
Well, because the UI for these games is shit.
The UI,
not the UI, the AI.
AI. That Yes.
I wonder if there's a fighting game out there that just has like the shittiest AI ever made.
As in terms of you can't beat it, or in terms of it's stupid. And
like the UI is just retarded.
AI.
No, I'm talking UI. I'm wondering if there is a UI out there. I'm not talking AI right now.
UI is user interface.
I know this. We just went over this. I'm just wondering, like, is it possible for a fighting game to have a crappy UI?
I don't know. People say Tekken was... Or, no, not Tekken. Street Fighter versus Tekken. They say it was ugly. I haven't played it.
Okay, there's a difference between ugly and having a crappy UI. Like, does it take you 20 minutes to find one combo in the moves list? Like, I'm talking, does it have a crappy UI?
Mortal Kombat, I couldn't find the combos in the move list. I think it's in a completely different menu. You start up, you open up the command list, you like scroll up and down, you can't see like certain combos. You have to press a button or something to get to a different tab and see those combos. I don't know. Ian has more experience.
You know what? I think,
But I don't know
There's
about...
a side of me that totally agrees with like them just being this crappy memorization game without really any creativity. But there's also the side of me that thinks, you know, there's got to be some level of skill to it. I mean, maybe it's not, maybe they are just like butt mashing, but at the same time, like knowing when to use your combo against somebody else's combo does take some level of skill. I mean, that can't be denied.
Correct, but first, you have to memorize, you have to know...
Yeah, you have to memorize
your
everything,
combo and his
which is
combo.
retarded. I mean, you should just be able to throw a game in, play it, and be able to have fun with it. And if you have to memorize a combo just to win a match, then or everything just to win a match, then I agree, it is retarded.
That's why I don't really enjoy playing fighting games online. But I want to see how badly I can get beat. I want to play like Soul Calibur.
Go play
after
Soul
this.
Calibur as Yoda.
I don't have Yoda. I haven't... Wait,
I
someone downloaded it on this machine, I think.
yeah, I did.
Oh, okay, cool. So we have Yoda.
Yeah, yeah, if you were to play it on this machine, you would have Yoda.
Cool.
If you were to play it on my machine back home, you would have Yoda.
And continuing, because we've established that first you have to memorize the combos before you could do anything relating to skill. And then competitive players, the guy that go and win money playing fighting games. You ask like any of them for Marvel vs. Capcom 2 days, and they picked, like, you had 5 characters that were viable tournament winners that you could pick. It was like Magneto, Storm, Cyclope, Sentinel, Cyclops. No, not Cyclope. Cyclope. I think her name was called Cyclope.
Psylocke, maybe?
Yeah, Psylocke, whatever. Yeah, the blue girl.
Yeah, Psylocke.
You mean
No, the other blue girl. She wore blue, as opposed to
Okay.
was being blue. But you can only choose about 5 viable characters, and you only use their best combos and win. That's what it is. That's what competitive players do. On the forums online, I have asked them, and they have admitted, if they could throw sand in your eyes to win, they would do it. Because there's money involved, and they're just scum.
So basically, that they're just like
They would do anything.
they're scumbags to say they're better at a game, which in the end is just a freaking spreadsheet of numbers and button combos.
Yes, they would.
So basically, what you're telling me is like somebody who has. Yeah, I mean, this is stretching it, mind you, but like, you know, Stephen Hawking could be good at a fighting game just because he can memorize the button combos by looking at them once.
Probably, yeah.
Versus like what a normal game skill would take is like reaction time, knowing what to do exactly when.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because yeah, you're right. I mean, you've probably never seen somebody win a match with like a high kick, low kick. It's probably like high kick, low kick, left, right, you know, some stupid combo. I can see that, and that's stupid. I mean, that actually makes me disappointed in the games of this generation.
One thing, it's if you play fighting games online, you will get hit once, and then you will spend 15 minutes watching a combo because you got hit once. And if you want to, I don't know, complain about it on the internet, people will say, oh, well, don't get hit once, and then you won't get trapped in that 15-minute combo. I don't know about, if I would design a fighting game, I don't think I'd even have combos at all, maybe even, I don't know.
Well, you have to have some level of combo, but like, I don't know, make
combos weren't exactly meant to act as some kind of challenge element. It was actually because they couldn't fit all the moves on the single button press.
I think we covered this in another podcast. We already said that, like, the history of combos, that it was actually just a glitch, that you weren't supposed to be, like, stun locked so they could hit you again and again, which is the definition of a combo. That multiple moves that hit your opponent and that your opponent cannot react to, barring that first move.
Well, maybe that would be a good way to like fix a fighting game. Maybe make it so there is like combo breakers, like back in the old. I think it was Street Fighter. I want to say
Killer Instinct.
Killer Instinct.
That was where combo breaker came from. Yeah, they do have that, but you just like use.
I mean, it's nearly like impossible in what the MMO version of fighting games is. Because let's face it, any game that is successful nowadays has to be somehow massively multiplayer. And it may maybe still be a 2v2 match, but it's
you know.
Well, Skyrim,
Online, at least.
Yeah, online.
Skyrim showed that you don't need multiplayer to be successful. I mean, seriously.
Okay, yeah, but have you heard the biggest feedback about Skyrim? Have you? I'm curious.
It's glitchy, yes.
No, the biggest feedback about Skyrim is they should add in a co-op section of it. That has been the biggest thing that Bethesda has gotten in terms of feedback for Skyrim. Is 90% of their
Really?
forums, when the game first came out, is why is there no multiplayer option?
Because they've
What
been
was one
playing
of the-
too much Call of Duty.
What was one of the first add-ons for PC to come out for Skyrim? Multiplayer. What was the first add-on to come out for Fallout New Vegas? Multiplayer. These are PC only because somebody else had to do the work that Bethesda didn't want to do. And true, it is locally hosted, and Bethesda doesn't want to do dedicated servers. I get that.
It's their decision to make if they want their game to be multiplayer or
Right,
single
but
player.
still, like, I mean...
We want multiplayer, yeah.
Yeah, as your gaming industry, as your gamers, everybody wants multiplayer nowadays. And my guess is that even if the sequel to Skyrim, whatever it will be, if it doesn't have multiplayer, it's gonna go into the tank. And it's not that it's pretty easy to see that with Skyrim, because I know I personally got bored of Skyrim after about, I don't know, 40, 60 hours of gameplay, because there was just nothing left for me to do. The game was broken, and there was no multiplayer. There was no fun saying, I can go, like, play with a friend and brag about all my crap. I have to have a friend come over to my house, sit down, and look at me or go through all my crap, versus just going out with your friend and killing a dragon or something like that. I mean, that's why MMOs are so successful.
I would very much enjoy Skyrim a lot more if it had co-op, if I could play it online, or if it had some form of multiplayer. Even like a separate co-op campaign or something would be improved, because that's all I play. I only play pretty much co-op games right now. I have a friend in Indiana who I keep talking about on this podcast, and that's all.
You don't have friends, Grant. What is
That's
this?
all we do. We only play co-op games, and like get 100%. And we can spend hundreds of hours on one game, and that's a lot more than you could spend on a single-player game most of the time. And have
Depending
fun
on
with it.
the single player game. Let's specify that.
I don't know.
Because, I mean, people have clocked thousands of hours on Skyrim getting everything done, having, like, the 100%, you know...
Those people have
completion.
no friends.
Those people do have no friends. It's a true story.
And there's some single player games that are still pretty good, like Record of Ogre War.
Well, I think one of the things our generation is missing is, like, the good old-fashioned turn-based RPGs where you go into your room and you come out 3 days later being like, oh, that was a good game. Wait, what is today? And those just don't exist in our generation anymore. I think the last one I played was...
Does anybody remember what month it is?
Yeah, more or less. Magna Carta
Okay.
2 for the Xbox 360.
what?
That was like the only single-player game that I've legitimately clocked like 100+ hours on and legitimately enjoyed. Skyrim I didn't even enjoy because the storyline was just so lacking. Like, after like the first 10 quests, I was like, I already know what's going to happen. Like, screw this game. It's just another freaking
honestly-
Shakespearean story of redemption, you know?
Wait for him to talking before you start talking, and then
Yeah,
you
but I
can
have
start.
a rage against what he's saying.
Rage!
Okay, go ahead.
Rage, brother!
As someone who plays the X Universe games literally 40 hours a week, I honestly love single-player games, but only because I have nothing better to do.
Isn't the X Universe?
Oh, okay. I've never played X Universe. I can't say anything about it. I just know
It's
that
like space
generally...
combat, so...
Generally with a game that, I mean, the storyline, don't get me wrong, Skyrim was a this is, because Skyrim's like the hot topic. I like how we went from fighting games to Skyrim. But we're talking about that single multiplayer. I guess this conversation kind of blurred off center. But even if you, like, Skyrim, the storyline just wasn't that amazing. I mean, gamers need to, game developers, if they're going to make a single player game, need to come up with something new and unused. And I hate to say it, but there really isn't a whole lot that's new and unused. Or find that something new to frickin' make people interested. Skyrim was no different than Morrowind. Or Oblivion. It was the same basic game. It was just like, I don't even enjoy playing this anymore, you know?
We probably, I don't know, hit a plateau in creativity on what we can do with games unless
Exactly.
we invent some new technology that reaches into our brains and fourth dimension. I don't know.
Well, I mean, I love the engines, but I think today's gaming engines are just too widespread. Like, everybody uses the same engines. Like, where's like just a... You know what I'd love to see? A text-based, entirely text-based Xbox 360 game. Something that most people are going to be like, what the hell is this? And maybe it's not made by Bethesda, or maybe it's not made by, Activision or EA. Maybe it's just some little game developer. I'd love to see something like that. Like, one game I actually enjoyed it more than Skyrim was Kingdoms of Amalur. Because it wasn't EA did sponsor it. They weren't the developer, though.
What was the title?
Kingdoms of Amalur, The Reckoning.
Oh.
It was a fast-paced game. It was a very RPG thing, And that was about it, but I can't stay too mad at it because it was still fun.
I played the demo, and then I killed everyone in the first town, and the guards attacked me, and that was the end of the demo. But it was fun, the combat system. I don't know, I didn't know where you were going with this, so... Where were you going with this?
I don't even remember.
You started talking about fighting in MMOs or something, or like online components in fighting games.
Well, yeah, online components in fighting games. I mean, I guess that's what this conversation turned into, is what we as gamers want is the ability to reach out and play with other people and brag about our skills and whatever. I don't even know where I'm going with this, but at the end of the day, I would agree, fighting games are mostly about memorizing a spreadsheet and learning how to do it.
Yeah.
That's all they're about, in my opinion.
Yeah, that is. I think you are right. That is pretty much what fighting games are about. Me, I don't worry too much about that. I'm much more of a plot person. If a game doesn't have, I am much more critical of it whether a game's plot sucks or not. Fighting games, in my opinion, can be fairly good if they have a decent plot. Like the Battle Assault games I mentioned earlier. Basically they don't have too much of a plot. I mean, they do follow the plot of whatever. You have sort of a general plot you end up following, but it's from the shows. You don't have an original plot. And honestly, I didn't really care too much for that lack of an original plot. I mean, if it tells the plot it's based on really well, I'll be okay with it. But Battle Assault, it didn't really do that all that much.
Playing a fighting game for its plot is kind of
redundant.
Yeah,
because let's face it, a fighting game.
That's not what you play a fighting game for. The plot normally that's not what you.
Maybe, but plot. Any game. That's one of my main. That's one of my main things for video games. If they have a good plot or not.
If you like them, it's fine. It's just, why do we play certain games? I guess you play every game to experience its plot.
Yeah, experience its story.
And, of course, on the other side of this, most people, I think most people would agree with you. Most people, if a game came out that didn't have any plot, most people would dislike that, despite the fact that you're playing a fighting game to fight other people.
Yeah, some people are like me, and just I like nothing but plot. And then there are some people who play only for the fighting systems. And
mentioning a plot, because it's the game that I'm currently playing on, and I'm sure if anybody listens to this podcast, they're just going to hear the tick, tick, tick of my laptop fan in the background. Star Wars: The Old Republic. WoW, one of the biggest feedbacks about WoW was there was no storyline to WoW. Tor, maybe that's the reason Tor might be the one thing to trump, well, it won't be the one thing to trump WoW. Guild Wars 2 will be. But it's doing somewhat successfully in its first 6 months.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, it's because it's got storyline. So, throwing that out there. I'm going to go back to killing Wookiees now.
Wookiees.
Yes, I'm murdering Wookiees.
I
think we should tackle tackle another subject while we're on the meaning of meaning of skill in video games. I think we should tackle first-person shooters.
Those take skill.
Okay, I'm willing to challenge that because I don't think it's about skill at all. I really don't. Because all the game is a matter of pressing the left trigger and the right trigger. It really is. I think it just comes down to a matter, literally, some of the best players in the world who think they're the best players in the world, have the best KDRs and everything, is just because they live close to the server and they have a good reaction time. It doesn't mean they're necessarily a great player.
I would think that the technical execution of whatever you're doing, not more so than the button presses.
Maybe I should specify this more. I think, at least Call of Duty, in my opinion, absolutely no skill required. There's nothing realistic about the game. It's 2 close quarters of maps. All you have to do is run around in that game. Okay. Battlefield, on the other hand, I do think there's some level of skill because of the vehicles, because of the tacticalness necessary for the game.
For my opinion on this, most FPS games, about the main level of skill you need is proper aiming. If you get your aiming reticle in the proper location, you can do pretty much anything. That's about the only kind of skill you need.
Stay calm.
That's what I would say. I guess if we determine skill as like some sort of overall thing that encompasses reaction time, execution, and
but then we come back to debate: is reaction time a skill or is it a genetic, thing? Because let's face it.
I would say yes, it is a skill. If you take a video game player and a non-video game player and put them in a reaction test together, the video game player is going to win.
Why not one for every character?
That's what I would say, because their senses are trained to react quickly to things. The same with race car, drag racer drivers. When the light turns green, they have to step on the pedal, and that is determining whether they win or not. That in their car. But most of the time...
Yeah, most of the time it's who hits the pedal first.
Right, and that's reaction time, which I would say is a skill. Because you are thinking on your feet and you're using technical reaction times rather than memorization to win, I would say fighting or FPS take more skill. Please do not react to the gameplay while we're podcasting. Thank you. I will punch you in the face. React to that.
React to that. All right. Okay. All right. Now let's tackle. Let's just go over games and necessary skill requirement. Racing games. Opinions.
That's all I wanted.
I haven't played a racing game since. I don't even know. Freaking.
Racing games, from what I've seen, don't have too much of a skill requirement. Mainly what they have is something of an endurance requirement for your finger holding down the accelerator.
I personally think they do take. I think they do take a level of skill. I think it's not a great amount of skill, but it also depends on whether you're playing with a controller or a wheel. I think it takes a bit more skill with a wheel.
Bang. Okay.
Personally, but
you might have a point there. Still.
Because, let's face it, a lot of racing game is knowing your speeds and your turns. It's a matter of really watching the screen.
I would call that memorization, knowing the course and knowing when to turn and when to brake and when to slow down and speed up.
So knowing the course. So we're talking...
Unless it's NASCAR, which is just circles.
Yeah.
When will I make a right turn? I'm tired of these goddamn lefts.
Yeah. Of course, there's one thing I wouldn't mind. There's one racetrack I wouldn't mind doing if I were to drive a racing game, and that's only because of something. That's only because of a TV show I started watching in the past year or so.
Top Gear?
Racetrack,
yeah, the Top Gear test track.
I don't watch TV. I mean,
Heard of Top Gear? I've heard of it. That's
Top Gear is definitely a fun little show there are two different versions I've seen, one Brit, one American.
like The Office.
In each version...
is there a British version of The Office?
Yeah.
I've never heard of that.
Anyway, in each version, there's three guys who talk about cars, and they often have conflicting opinions, and they also have challenges where they each get a different car, and then take those to fit a specific theme, and then they take those cars along on a series of challenges. Like there was one where in the American Top Gear, there was one where they were testing, where they were wanting to find a pickup alternative because of because of rising fuel costs, and these rising fuel costs, and because of this, they wanted to try doing cheaper stuff. So they were wanting to figure out what was the best car for under $2,000. What was the best pickup alternative for under $2,000? And one guy got I think he got a BMW. I think that's sort of the standard thing. And then there was another guy with a Miata. And then...
Why are we talking cars?
Because we brought up the topic of driving games.
And this is sort of... Yeah. And then the last guy got a Maverick. And that was an interesting one. I mean, the first one they had to do like a cattle drive with their cars in place of horses, and then they had to modify their cars to haul cargo. And the cargo they ended up hauling was manure. And then they had a monster truck race. And the guy with the Maverick, he did really well on the first two challenges, and was doing well on the third challenge, that monster truck race, when his car caught on fire. And this is sort of a normal thing for him. It's like he wrecks pretty much every car he touches. But and the guy with the BMW ended up winning. And that's pretty much it for Top Gear.
Look, you know what this means, right?
Speed it up.
Yeah, wrap it up. Because we're talking about video games, not Top Gear.
Yeah. I mean...
If they made a Top Gear video game, I don't know.
Let's drop the topic of Top Gear. I don't mean to interrupt you, Carl, but it's right. This is the Ogre. It's a gaming club. Let's hit the topic. Somebody choose another genre of games. I mean, we could hit MMOs.
Yeah, but MMOs, I guess.
I think it really depends on what MMO you're playing. Because every MMO, every class even, is so different with an MMO that everybody gets a little bit of what they love. Like my class right now. I'm a Sith Juggernaut on the Old Republic. My class is a tanking class, but it's so technical that it's stupid, and I hate it sometimes. I just want to stab it in the neck, but enough with the violence.
What about... you play PvP battles. The one problem I have with like
MMOs?
PvP and MMOs is
balance.
Stun locking. That's what I get.
I agree. I think stun locking is definitely a matter of importance in any MMO. And in some MMOs, it's really good. In some MMOs, it's really bad. In my opinion, in Tor right now, there's one class that has 2 stuns that last like 20 seconds in PvP. So they stun you once, you break your stun, because every class has a stun break. Every class has a stun breaker, and then they just stun you again, which I think is entirely bullshit.
The one game I played was like that, it wasn't an MMO, but it had that similar system. It was one of the first games that came out on PSP, and you can play it online. It had that kind of a battle system. But there was one class that would just use like freezing moves, or like freezing weapons even, and they would just hit you with that and you would be frozen and then you would die, and that would pretty much be the fight. It was a one-on-one thing. You couldn't defend against it unless you planned before time. to get like frost resistance or whatever, so you wouldn't be frozen.
Right.
But I didn't find that to take very much skill. Just get the freezing weapons.
Right.
I'll be right back, and once I do, we can start. I'd like to change the. Once I get back, I'd like to change the topic from MMOs to strategy games. You can talk about MMOs all you want in the meantime.
Strategy games.
Wait for him to come back to say.
Okay. Yeah, I'll wait.
What other top MMOs?
WoW, I think, they're bringing Kung Fu Panda into WoW. WoW is dying, in my opinion. I'm not going to hate on the game too much. I played the game at one point or another. The game was well balanced. The game was not a bad game. I think the player base and the fan base of the game made it bad. The same way I hate Call of Duty, just mainly because of the fanboys.
Wait, did we ever resolve this shooting FPS thing taking skill or not? Did you?
I think we kind of did. I think we established that reaction time is inherently earned from that. It's a skill that most gamers get, so it does take a level of skill, as I believe what we established. I think there's certain games that take more. That's why, I'm not a big Call of Duty fan. I think it takes very lacking level of skill, in my opinion.
If you play something like Counter-Strike with the other PC shooters, which are just notorious for people with quick reaction times and getting headshots from across the map with like a split second of window of opportunity for that Counter-Strike or something, which I've never played.
Well, I've played Battlefield, and I love Battlefield, the bullet drop, the realistic, the jet piloting in the game. I think it just depends on what game we're talking. I think the level of skill necessary is different. I think Battlefield takes a bit more skill than Call of Duty.
I don't
know your opinion on that, but I believe you have played both, so you will well.
In terms of, if, as a general trait, the more realistic a game is, the less skill it takes, and the more strategizing it takes. If it were like a run-and-gun game like Call of Duty or a PC game like Counter-Strike, which aren't very realistic, but they're very fast, and you're just in situations where you have to turn and shoot. I think that takes more skill than something super realistic like Arma, which is, okay, get to this hill, walk up this hill, lay down on this hill, and wait until your enemy comes into view so you could shoot them from 1,000 yards away.
But then we have a middle ground, because let's face it, Arma, you can't really compare Arma and COD. They're just on two totally different levels. So let's hit the middle, a somewhat popular middle ground between the two, Battlefield. What's your opinion on that?
I think it takes maybe...
What do you think takes more skill, Battlefield or Call of Duty?
I've played Black Ops, which, I don't know, I'd say they're about equal. I'm better at Battlefield than I am at Black Ops, so I guess I say that takes less skill. I don't know. Battlefield takes slightly less skill. I don't know.
Well, but is it because Battlefield is based on... It's not based on your KDR like COD is. Sometimes it's based a lot more objectively. You can have a guy... Like, I was a big Battlefield player. I had my own clan and all that crap. But I wasn't that into it. It was just kind of a bunch of buddies who played together. And we had one guy, his KDR was like 0.4 or something awful as hell. But his score per minute was like 2,000. It was ridiculous. The guy could not kill anybody, but he was so objective-based that he always was like MVP.
I would say that strategizing and like getting to objectives, moving to places, moving intelligently, so that you aren't walking in the middle of.
Okay, but isn't strategizing a form of skill?
I wouldn't.
Because I would say that it entirely is. In chess, former games of war, the guy who was the best strategist won. So are we saying that chess requires no skill?
I think it's more of intelligence than skill. I would say intelligence and skill are different things.
I would disagree with that statement, but that's another thing for another time. Because if you really wanted to get technical, camping in Call of Duty, or knowing the best corner is strategizing.
And were you?
Is that not an inherent skill? After you learn the maps, just like any other game, you know the best spots, you know the high traffic spots in a map, and you sit there and you wait. Is that not considered skill?
I don't think that's considered skill, no. To sit there and wait until someone comes by?
Okay. Maybe I phrased that wrong. But I still believe that knowing movement paths properly, I'd still say that takes some level of skill.
I'd say that's more on memorization, like a fighting game. Knowing who's going to come, which paths win, and like which hallway to look down.
Right.
The popular choke points and stuff. I would say that doesn't.
I would disagree with that to an extent.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the big thing that makes Battlefield different from that is there's vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
And there's sniping, like a motherfucker. I mean, nothing like Call of Duty, but let's face it, you wouldn't actually need a sniper rifle in a Call of Duty map.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay.
Strategy games?
Yes.
Strategy
games. Stuff like StarCraft or...
In my opinion, it's reaction time and how fast you can move your damn fingers. But I'm not a big RTS guy. I do not like RTSs. So I am going to be out of this conversation.
I don't have much experience with them either.
Not just RTSs, but turn-based stuff like Fire Emblem.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we're talking more like Final Fantasy Tactics type shit.
Well, we're talking about both, actually.
Just general strategy.
Well, let's hit one first. Let's hit the real-time strategy, StarCraft, Warcraft. Let's hit the, Command and Conquer type stuff first.
That guy's proportions are ridiculous.
I know, right? Fat guys for the win.
Okay, so RTS is first. Not too much skill involved. Yeah, like he said, mainly reaction time, and also figure. I think about the main kind of skill you need is figuring out what unit type works best in your particular situation. Again, using StarCraft for an example, especially if you're playing a Terran. You start out with just a basic command center and about 6 SCVs in StarCraft 2.
Which are what? What are those?
Those are your basic worker units. They gather minerals, they build your structures, and if you build a refinery, they can gather Vespene gas, which is your other major resource. And once you set your initial 6 to gathering, and then you start building structures. Then you start building more SCVs, and then you continue building, and then you start building structures when you have enough SCVs and minerals. And once you get your barracks down, which is where you can start training your infantry troops, that's where you get to start figuring out what you want to make. That's where you start figuring out what build you want to use. And there are some common ones, like a reactor Hellion expand, which I guess is very good against Zerg in the early game, where you just build a reactor on your first barracks, and then you build a factory at the same time. When both are done, you lift up the barracks, lift up the factory, set the factory down next to the reactor, and you get stuff on, and you can just churn out 2 Hellions at a whack. And then there's, I've watched casts of various StarCraft 2 games, and I have seen some very interesting builds. Like, I saw this one where the guy this Terran was playing Zerg, like I've been talking about, and then he did a reactor Hellion expand. Then after that, he started building a starport where you can build your flying units. And as soon as he finished with that, he started building another structure. And the caster said, "What is this? This is a fusion core." And he was like at the 5-minute mark. And he was building a fusion core.
One thing here. Some people, I personally have no idea what the hell you're talking about. No idea what a fusion core does.
Fusion core allows you to build battle cruisers. Battle cruisers, the biggest flying units the terrorists can field. At the 5-minute mark.
Oh, okay, right. But what does this have to do with the amount of skill level? Like I said, I think it's, North Korea? That's
South Korea.
South
North
Korea
does nothing.
I thought North Korea had a
North
StarCraft
Korea
guy.
has communists. That's what they have.
Well, okay, well, whatever. North Korea then. Well, South Korea has, the freaking StarCraft team. And really, the guys' reaction times are just stupid, and it's a matter of memorizing combos. What is it about memorizing combos? Jesus.
For what he's talking about, there was a real thing that calls actions per minute, which is how fast you can move your mouse to accomplish things per minute. It's
it's a matter
that's
of how
they
fast
measure.
you can click buttons. Yeah, that's how they measure. It's a matter of reaction time.
If they
Am
can,
I right?
If they can select movements and move them across the map faster than the other guy,
They win.
that's.
But is that a matter of skill, or is that? I think it's a matter of reaction time.
I say it's a general.
Let's try to find something. Find a genre of game, or even just a game that is entirely about skill. I know one.
How do we measure skill? We have to ask
Zerg.
that question.
Or what is the name of the game?
Zorg is StarCraft thing. Zork?
No, it's the what's the text-based one?
Zork?
Zork. Problem solved. I think Tetris is entirely skill-based.
Right.
This is-
Well, okay.
I wanted to say that if we measure skill, how do we measure skill? As a general rule, I measure skill by reaction time. If you're doing more reaction-based things than memory-based things, then a game takes more skill than another game. That's how I measure.
Okay, so what you're saying is people who have genetically, are genetically superior, because let's face it, there is a certain level of reaction time that is genetic.
Sure.
Okay.
Because let's face it, I'm a big fat ass over here.
If they isolated that gene, I'd love that exploit.
The fat gene or the other gene?
The gene for...
Okay, whatever.
I was just joking.
Alright, but let's face it, I'm a big guy. And this is actually scientifically proven. A smaller guy, let's say somebody's 4'2" with 2-foot arms, is gonna have a fast reaction time to me because he don't have to go as far. And I mean, it's a fraction of milliseconds, but it matters.
I would say, well, actually, here's a good way to define skill. If you take two people and throw them in a game that is entirely unfamiliar to them, and whoever wins is more skillful.
It'll come down to a matter of reaction time in most games. So let's try to find
It
a game
depends.
that isn't necessarily about reaction time.
Okay, let's go to a turn-based strategy.
Okay, yeah, turn-based. This is the kicker right here, because turn-based strategy isn't necessarily about reaction time at all. It's like a game of chess.
Which is, I just reiterate my position on chess, that it's a function of intelligence and has nothing to do with skill. But go on.
But is it intelligence a skill?
I don't think so, no.
Okay, but then we have the battle of intelligence versus reaction time. Both are genetically somewhat influenced. So
I would say intelligence is more genetically influenced than reaction time. I don't know.
Right.
I don't know if there's data to prove this or anything.
But yeah, I agree. I agree with him that intelligence can be considered a skill. And turn-based strategy games, some of them can even be more involved than chess. I mean, with chess, you just have to you just have to know what unit moves what piece moves which way. But in, say, Fire Emblem, you have to. Every unit can move in pretty much any direction, but they have specific movement ranges, and you have to take into account health and health stats and weaponry, because a lot of turn-based strategy games that I have played bring weapons into the play in a rock paper scissors style.
And also, the tile you're on, the environment that you're on. If you're in a forest, you'll get a higher defense rating or something like that.
Yeah. So, yeah. Turn-based strategy, I think, involves a lot of skill. Especially Fire Emblem games. I mean, Fire Emblem games have quite a bit of skill. I enjoy Fire Emblem, and the weapon triangle is fun. Swords, lances, and axes. Swords beat axes. Axes beat lances. Lances beat swords. It is very fun. I like seeing that. I like that kind of stuff. And they also have a magic triangle for magic users, which functions the same way as the weapon triangle. Rock, paper, scissors.
Like that, you're talking about that, and it just totally reminds me of like RuneScape, going back to like ancient games.
RuneScape took skill.
Not really. No.
I mean, I'd say, yeah, all you needed for RuneScape was, in PvP instances, was a better connection. Not even that. I mean, I don't even know what to call it. It's like a Final Fantasy turn-based MMO. Like, it's shitty as fuck, but I still get the urge to play it every now and then for nostalgic value. But on a side note,
I used to censor out all the profanity by going into Audacity and muting it when there was, but I think I'm just gonna give up on that now because there's no.
I'm sorry. I have a very. Okay, you should just put a spoiler warning or whatever.
Profanity warning.
Profanity warning at the beginning of.
Put it behind a rank it as mature on YouTube.
Yeah, but yeah, again, turn-based strategy, very fun and very skill involved. Of course, Advance Wars is another decent turn-based strategy game. That, although it goes a little more like RTS, because you have to, because you don't have a fixed amount of units, you have to build units. But your CO, the commanding officer for your troops, plays an important role. Oh, and another turn-based strategy game which I really enjoy, and I think skill plays a massive role in, is Super Robot Wars. And there the skill is more than just... you're also putting in time and effort to upgrade your units. It's sort of winning levels. Defeating enemies in Super Robot Wars gives you points which you use to upgrade your machines.
Carl, let me ask you, what games have you played competitively against other people? Well, not on a professional level, but just to play against another person. What games?
Well, I've played some StarCraft 2 ladder matches.
Have you played... Okay, I have a question, since I know you play Tor. Have you played PvP in Tor?
I have.
That's another one. Just do that out there, because I knew you played Tor.
Yeah, I've played a few PvP... well, not a few. I've played several PvP matches in Tor. I think my favorite war zone would have to be a cross between either Void Star or Hutball.
I want to kill you. Right now, I hate Hutball so much.
I have no idea what those mean.
Hutball, okay, so they're all objective.
I don't think I want to know.
Hutball, it's like the, what was it? I think it was Final Fantasy 13 had a really crappy, water ball game. Imagine that in Star Wars.
Blitzball.
Yeah, imagine that in Star Wars is all I have to tell you.
Yeah, basically you're fighting... although I kind of like the Alderaan Civil War.
I love Alderaan Civil War, but that's my opinion. This is totally off topic.
Yeah.
Skill. Let's put this to the test. Okay, we say Ian is better at me than Mortal Kombat because he has Mortal Kombat and he knows all the combos and stuff. Because he beats me, does that mean he is more skillful than me? Inherently skillful?
No,
or
I mean,
skillful?
I think there is a certain level of skill that is developed.
That is learned.
I think literally we'd have to test this thing, to get down. I mean, I don't know how to even that's just such a tough question. I mean, is he more inherently skillful? No, maybe not. Maybe it's your first time ever playing Mortal Kombat, and maybe you bring him down to 1% health. He's been playing for a while. He has developed skill. I think there's a difference between inherently skillful and developed skill.
I would say that inherently skills are things like reaction time and things that you learn, or things which are developed, like memorization of combos of the maps of stuff like that, intelligence, or stuff like that. That's my. What do you? Are any of you guys listening? Are you chiming in on this?
Yeah, well, we haven't heard from any of you, David. I don't remember your other two names. I'm sorry.
Ian, do you want to? Were you listening? He's actually playing Mortal Kombat, which is why he beats me at it, because he plays it.
Lolly Fighter is the shit, though.
And I
Just
beat
on
everyone.
an entirely ridiculous side note.
I beat everyone at Lowly Fighter because I have that game and I've more experience and I played it online and I'm practiced. Maybe you have, like the Olympics, maybe you have to practice so that your full potential can come out. Like you have to train and practice and get the perfect, as much as you can, the perfect body and aerodynamics and stuff
That's what she said.
before you could be
I'm
a
sorry.
good swimmer. As Michael Phelps, you have to get to that level of developing your skills before the inherent skills can determine who's the winner. So everyone, practice at Lowly Fighter.
Lolly Fighter? What about Lolly Fighter?
Practice at Lowly Fighter and develop your
Lolly
skills to
Fighter
an Olympic
is the
level.
shit. Olympic? Lolly Fighter. it is.
Olympic level. Then let's put this to the test. I guess
Well,
that's...
I think we should. I'm trying to think of like a game that we could just go and get, even if it's like a cheap game that like.
None of us have
You
played.
want to know what? We need to go get some Pong and see who is inherently. Well, no, that's reaction time. God damn it! Fuck!
You can't memorize anything in Pong.
There's no memorization in Pong.
Maybe you could like think ahead like billiards. If this hits here, then it'll like...
Well,
Exactly
there is a
like
certain
billiards.
level of that. in Pong.
I think we should try. I think that we should just try. I'm kind of thinking that we should like try comparing our doing single player games against each other multiple times.
How does that
But
work?
how do we do single player games against each other?
What
Like,
we do is play single player and compare how we do.
Fighting the computer?
Yeah, and basically just with a single player game, I think would require a fair amount of skill. So we just see who does the best in a particular single player game.
I don't know, would that be a good
this
test?
is gonna get real bad. Sorry.
He's dying in tour.
Well, yeah, because I accidentally pulled two. I didn't know they were fighting a mod group, and I just pulled a mod group, and I'm a tank, and this is just gonna get all bad.
Why would playing against the CPU be more effective than playing against each other to determine skill, Carl?
I think that a control group. It's a control group and an experiment.
Ah, I see.
Yeah. So that'd work. Have one person playing against. I have like a couple people playing against the CPU and compare how each of them does, and then have another group playing against each other.
Okay. Forgive me if I'm not seeing it, but I'm not seeing it. I don't see the benefits of that. Well, the control group I can understand, but besides just having a control group for the sake of... I do not understand, but that's okay. I don't need to understand.
You don't need to understand anything.
I'll just go along with it. So, we will get back to you on the results of the experiment that we're probably not going to do next time on the Ogre Podcast. Sing us out.
And this is the Ogre Podcast signing out. Yeah. Yeah.
Wait, no, you're not doing it.
Whoa.
Hey.